Hello and welcome back to another Learn English by Reading video. My name is Reese from EnglishWithReese.com, and today we're going to improve our grammar, vocabulary and pronunciation with an article about the Loch Ness Monster. Now remember, if this video is too fast for you, there is a button in the bottom right hand side that you can use to slow down the video. Okay, and with that, let's get started. Monster hunters are conducting the largest search of Loch Ness in more than 50 years. Okay, I think we should start with the word monster. A monster is an animal that doesn't exist. Usually they are a scary animal, like the Loch Ness Monster, like Bigfoot, or the guys from Monsters, Inc. And a hunter is somebody who follows someone or another animal with the intention to kill them or use them for money. But for a monster hunter, they're probably just going to see whether the monster exists, whether it's real. So we're using hunter in kind of a playful way. They're not trying to hurt the monster, they just want to see him. Okay. And monster hunters are conducting, in other words, they are leading the largest search of Loch Ness in more than 50 years. Now, some of you might know the Loch Ness. It's quite a famous lake. It's certainly one of the biggest lakes in the UK, and it's in Scotland. Okay, let's look at some pronunciation. This last part, than 50 years. Actually, I'm not saying than. I'm saying than. Okay, so listen to that again. Monster hunters are conducting the largest search of Loch Ness in more than 50 years. And another pronunciation tip, listen to this. Conducting the largest search. Do you notice that the t wasn't there? I kind of threw that away because largest search is a bit too much for the mouth. It's kind of like that. So if I take the t away, I'm saying largest search. Largest search. Okay. Let's move on. Somewhere beneath the shimmering surface of Loch Ness lies Nessie, the legendary sea beast whose reputation spans nearly 1,500 years. At least that's what monster hunters and Nessie enthusiasts from around the world hope to prove Saturday and Sunday. Okay, let's jump into some vocabulary. We have this word, beneath, which just means under, underwater, beneath the water, like that. And the shimmering surface. Okay, I think we need to start with surface. That is the top level of the water or of a thing. I have a camera battery. This is the surface of the battery, and this part is underneath the battery. Okay. Now, the surface of the water is shimmering. In other words, the light from the sun hits it and makes it kind of sparkly and beautiful. The light, boing, bounces off the surface of Loch Ness. And here we have Nessie. Now, Nessie is a name, but it's a famous name because it is the nickname for the Loch Ness Monster. So when I say nickname, I mean a name that people use that isn't the real name. So for example, I have a nickname in Chinese. It's Li Si, because it's easier to say for Chinese people, and it is a real Chinese name that sounds like my name. Okay, it's not my real name, it's not on any important documents. It's my nickname. Now, Nessie is a legendary sea beast. If something is legendary, it has legends told about it. In other words, lots of stories told about it. Okay, some might be true, some might not be true, but there are many stories. He is a legendary sea beast. Beast is a word that we use for an animal, but we use this word when we want to say the animal is strong or fierce or angry. That beast makes it feel very big. You might notice that humans call each other beasts sometimes, like, oh, you sexy beast. Just means they are very strong. Okay, it's the same kind of thing we're saying with animals. So Nessie is a legendary sea beast whose reputation spans nearly 1500 years. Your reputation is what people say about you. So, I hope I have a reputation as an English teacher who knows what he is talking about. Okay, maybe someone has a reputation for cooking amazing meals. Or maybe someone has a reputation for being untrustworthy. You know, be careful of him. He has a bad reputation. You can't trust him. Okay. Now, Nessie's reputation spans or goes over nearly 1500 years. So people have been talking about Nessie for 1500 years. That's amazing, right? Now check out this pronunciation tip. So 1500 is the most correct way to say this number, but it's not the most native way. It's not the most fluent way. We usually say 1500s. And the reason for that, I guess, is that it saves time. We have 1500, 1500. It's a bit quicker to say it this way, isn't it? So Nessie's reputation spans nearly 1500 years. At least, that's what monster hunters and Nessie enthusiasts around the world hope to prove on Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so I think we need to jump into the vocab and then we can explain the sentence. So if you are an enthusiast, you are enthusiastic about something. You know, some of you are probably language enthusiasts. Okay, you find language very interesting. It makes you happy to explore it and to learn more. You have a passion for it. And these monster hunters have a passion, or they're enthusiastic about Nessie, about the Loch Ness Monster. And they hope to prove Nessie's reputation on Saturday and Sunday. When we want to prove something, we need to show evidence. We need to find something that helps everyone know that this is true, okay? So at the moment, we don't really have anything to say that the Loch Ness Monster is real. You know, people have seen the Loch Ness Monster. Maybe there are some photos, but we're not sure if they're real. So on this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the enthusiasts are hoping to show some real evidence, some scientific proof that Nessie is real. Okay? They are trying to prove Nessie's reputation. Okay? Can he have a reputation if he isn't real? I don't know. That's a tough question. So hopefully they can prove it. Now here's a bit of grammar. Okay, so check it out. We're making a claim in the beginning. You know, somewhere under the water is Nessie, this sea beast, and people have been talking about him for 1500 years. Okay, all of this might be true. Okay, we're making a claim here. So let's protect ourselves a little bit. I don't want to say this is true because I'm not really sure myself. But I can say people are saying this. That's where this phrase, at least, comes in. So here's the claim. At least that's what some people think. Okay. In other words, there are aliens living on Earth. At least that's what some people say. You know, something like that. We can make the big claim. which gets people interested, and then you let them down a little bit. You say, well, I'm not saying that. Other people are saying that. Okay, a little trick. It's a little bit cheeky. The Loch Ness Monster Centre and the research group Loch Ness Exploration are asking all aspiring monster hunters to join in on the biggest search since 1972. So just a quick one here. We can see that the Loch Ness Centre is a place because we have all capital letters. If they were small letters, maybe this sentence would be confusing, but the capital letters, the big letters, remind us, this is a name, so I know this part of the sentence, then this part. And the research group, Loch Ness Exploration, okay, another name there. So what is a research group? Well, that's a group of people, maybe a team, it could be small, it could be big, of people who are looking for more information. They are researching the Loch Ness. Okay, and another word here, they are exploring the Loch Ness. That means actually going in there to find information. Okay, it's difficult to explore if you don't go there, but you can research. So for example, the Amazon rainforest. Okay, we can research about the Amazon rainforest from our computers, from our phones, but we can't explore it. We would have to go to the Amazon rainforest and go inside, go for a walk, look around, and then we would be exploring. Okay. So the Loch Ness Centre and the research group Loch Ness Exploration are asking all aspiring monster hunters. Aspiring comes from the word aspire, which means to dream about doing something, or they're trying to be something in the future. Okay, so they're asking all the people who want to be monster hunters in the future to come along and join in to the biggest search since 1972. Now, I might take a second to tell you the difference between since and for. Okay, we use since when we are talking about a specific time in the past, like 1972, like the 30th of September, or my birthday, okay, since my birthday. We could use for lengths of time, okay, so we have since 1972, that's about 51 years. So we could say for 51 years, okay? So for is for lengths of time, since is for specific dates. I also want to tell you about this bit of pronunciation, arasking. Arasking. Where is that coming from? You might think it's from there is an R in there, right? But it's not that. In British English, is most often pronounced as okay? So there are 4 people here. There are 4 people here, okay? So it's not that. It's actually because we are putting 2 vowels together, ah. So I could do that, asking. I could do that. But if I'm relaxed, what actually comes out is an extra sound, arasking. Okay, instead of closing my mouth or instead of stopping my voice, I just keep going, arasking. Okay. Our purpose is to observe, record, and study the natural behavior of the loch and phenomena that may be more challenging to explain, the Loch Ness Exploration page reads. Okay, our purpose, the reason we are doing this is to observe, to see, to record, to write down what we see, and study the natural behavior of the loch. Okay, so remember the loch is the lake. They want to see how the lake behaves naturally, not when humans are doing things to the lake, just how the lake is on its own. And the phenomena that may be more challenging to explain. Interestingly, phenomena is a plural word. You might have heard the singular word, phenomenon. So because English is made up of many different languages, we sometimes have different ways to do the same thing, okay? So we have cat, cats, dog, dogs, table, tables, right? That's pretty straightforward, and that's what we use in most of English, but occasionally you'll see another way. And a phenomenon or phenomena is just a word we use to count the things that we can see, that we can learn. It's another word for facts, in a way. So their purpose is to observe, record, and study the natural behavior of the lake and the facts that may be more challenging to explain. And challenging is a nice way to say difficult. So when something is difficult, it feels like it's going to take a lot of effort for us to achieve it, and it feels a bit negative. But if we say challenging, we kind of change that into a game, and it's actually fun to pass that challenge. So if you say, oh, this maths test is too difficult, it makes you feel like maybe you can't do it. If you say, this maths test is pretty challenging, it means you can do it, but you're going to have to work hard. You know, it just gives you a different feeling, a more positive feeling. So challenging is a better word than difficult in many situations. If you believe that the Loch Ness Monster exists, then we invite you to join the search. We equally invite you to support the study of the loch and the natural behaviour of the elements that may be the root cause of these strange reports from Loch Ness. Okay, so if you believe that the Loch Ness Monster exists, if you believe the Loch Ness Monster is real, then we invite you, we ask you to come and join the search. We equally invite you to support the study of the loch. Okay, we equally invite you. So we're using this word to say, okay, here are two things. One is that we invite you to join the search, and the second is we invite you to support the study of the loch. Now, I said this one second, but that doesn't mean it's less important. It's actually equally important. That's why I equally invite you. Okay, so we equally invite you to support the study of the loch and the natural behavior of the elements. Okay, the elements are the parts that make this up. Okay, so there are all of these strange reports, and we're wondering, where are all these coming from? What is coming together to make those things happen? So it could be some kind of gas coming from the lake that makes us see things or think different things. It could be the weather, you know, it could be many different elements coming together that result in many people saying they've seen the Loch Ness Monster. And then we have the root cause. The root cause is the very first reason something happens. Okay, so let's say I ate a very big bowl of ice cream. Why did I do that? Because I was hungry. Okay, that's a reason, it's a cause. It's not the root cause. You have to keep asking questions. Well, why are you hungry? Well, I didn't eat lunch today. Why didn't you eat lunch? I woke up late and I needed to get work done. Why did you wake up late? I was up all night playing video games. That's the root cause. That's the first reason that I ate a big bowl of ice cream. The root cause is the first cause, the first reason. And then we have strange or weird reports, what people have said. So people are saying some strange or weird things about the Loch Ness. Now, interestingly, we're using the zero conditional here. If you believe that the Loch Ness Monster exists, then we invite you to join the search. Okay, so usually when we use the zero conditional, it's for things that are generally always true. If ice gets hot, it melts. Okay, there's a classic example. But here, we're using it for an invitation. If you believe that the Loch Ness Monster exists. Now that could be true, since you're a small child to an old man. That could always be true. Then we invite you to join the search. Now that's true now. That's why we're using the present simple. But it's not true always. This search wasn't in the past, so how can I invite you? It's not in 2 weeks, so I can't invite you to that. But we're still using it for an invitation. So even though this feels like a strange use of the zero conditional, it's actually quite a common one. Investigators are breaking out all sorts of technology, including surveying equipment the Loch Ness Centre says has never been used on the freshwater lake before. Now let me bring your attention to fresh water. That's water that isn't salty. So ocean water is not fresh water. Only in lakes, maybe ponds, things like that, we can find fresh water. Now, I wanted to bring this to your attention because it doesn't add anything to this paragraph. You know, this equipment has never been used on the lake before. We all know what lake this is. But they're just adding in this little adjective to give us some more information to help us picture the lake. Okay, so this doesn't add information really, but it's more of an artistic choice to make us think about the lake in a more real way. We can kind of taste the water now that we know it's fresh water. So let's go back to the beginning. We have investigators, which you might have guessed is a kind of job. If you investigate, it means you are looking into something. You are trying to find out why something happens or where something is, something along those lines. You're trying to get more information. And these investigators are breaking out all sorts of technology. Now, to break out or breaking out, that's a phrasal verb, just means to take something out that hasn't been used for a long time, or maybe it's brand new. They are breaking out all sorts of technology. Now, I never use a pencil these days, everything's on the computer, but occasionally I'll break out my pencil because I need to write something down on paper. Okay, so I don't usually use it, but it's been a long time and I'm going to bring it out, or I'm going to break it out now. All sorts of technology. All sorts is a collocation. These words often go together. All sorts means many different kinds. Okay, so maybe I have all sorts of tools in my shed, or I have all sorts of teas in my cupboard. And here they have all sorts of technology, including surveying equipment. Okay, so when you survey land or water, it just means you're trying to learn more about an area, about a place. So sometimes scientists will survey land to get a better idea of what plants grow there, which animals live there, how much water there is in the ground, and things like that. They are surveying. The legend of a monster lurking in the loch didn't garner great attention until April of 1933, when a couple driving along the newly built road around the lake saw an animal they compared to a dragon or prehistoric monster, according to the Scottish Maritime Museum. Now remember earlier I said about the word legendary. Now here it is as a noun, the legend, okay? The story of a monster lurking in the loch. Okay, so lurking just means moving, but in a kind of evil way or sneaky way. So if the monster is lurking through the loch, he doesn't want to be seen. He is lurking. You can imagine some humans lurking too. If they are a criminal and they're trying to hide from the police, maybe they are lurking behind buildings, something like that. But the legend of a monster lurking in the loch didn't garner great attention. Now, garner is a word I often see in the news, not usually in many other places, to be honest. But if you know it, you will understand the news better. So it's worth learning. So gather means to collect information, to gather information. And that could be a way for you to remember it. Gather looks a lot like garner, doesn't it? They're quite similar words. So if you imagine gather to collect, then you might remember it a bit more easily. Okay. So the legend of a monster lurking in the loch didn't collect great attention. It didn't garner great attention. In other words, not many people were talking about it. They didn't pay attention. They weren't looking. They weren't listening. They don't really care, or they don't know about it. So he didn't garner great attention until April of 1933. Okay. So something's happening in 1933. Before that, no attention. After that, whoa, we have attention now. So in 1933, a couple driving along the newly built road around the lake saw an animal they compared to a dragon or prehistoric monster. Okay, I think we're going to have to start with prehistoric. So I think we might all know the word history, which is just the past. Okay, but there's only so far we can look in the past and still have a lot of information. So we can go pretty far in human history, but the further we go, we can get less and less information. And when we go before humans, it gets harder and harder. So we have history that we can actually study, but before that, it's so hard. That's what we call prehistory, kind of dinosaur times. Now, perhaps a bit of grammar I can bring to your attention that you see in the news, but also in academic writing, is where we seamlessly put a quote into a sentence. Okay. So, the couple said dragon or prehistoric monster. But the first part of the sentence they didn't say. The writer has written a sentence that can use that quote quite nicely. And if those quotes weren't there, you wouldn't even know that it was a quote or that something's wrong with the sentence. So that is a perfectly written sentence using a quote. The Loch Ness Centre says there have now been more than 1,140 official Nessie sightings. In other words, Nessie has been sighted or seen 1,140 times, apparently. So remember what I said about numbers like this. Even though 1,140 is correct and it's good English, most natives would say 1,140 here. And one more bit of pronunciation, bean. Bean is not pronounced as bean most of the time, it's pronounced bin. They have now been more than, okay? So what's going to happen now? I'm going to read the entire article again in a native style so you can follow along and hear how a real native sounds. And what I want you to do is read along with it. Okay, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to slow down. I'm just going to read it in a native style. But before I do that, if you're not already subscribed and you learned something today, hit the subscribe button. It helps me to make more videos and it helps other learners to find the videos. So you're doing something for yourself, you're doing something for me, and for other English learners. All right, let's jump into it. Monster hunters are conducting the largest search of Loch Ness in more than 50 years. Somewhere beneath the shimmering surface of Loch Ness lies Nessie, the legendary sea beast whose reputation spans nearly 1,500 years. At least that's what monster hunters and Nessie enthusiasts from around the world hope to prove Saturday and Sunday. The Loch Ness Centre and the research group Loch Ness Exploration are asking all aspiring monster hunters to join in on the biggest search since 1972. Our purpose is to observe, record and study the natural behaviour of the loch and phenomena that may be more challenging to explain, the Loch Ness Exploration Facebook group reads. If you believe that the Loch Ness Monster exists, then we invite you to join the search. We equally invite you to support the study of the loch and the natural behaviour of the elements that may be the root cause of these strange reports from Loch Ness. Investigators are breaking out all sorts of technology, including surveying equipment the Loch Ness Centre says has never been used on the freshwater lake before. The legend of a monster lurking in the loch didn't garner great attention until April of 1933, when a couple driving along the newly built road around the lake saw an animal they compared to a dragon or prehistoric monster, according to the Scottish Maritime Museum. The Loch Ness Centre says there have now been more than 1,140 official Nessie sightings. Alright, that's going to do it today, guys. Remember to like the video, and I'll see you next time.